Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Compelling Conversations podcast. Today, I'm very happy to be joined by Ali. Ali, thanks so much for being here, man.
Thanks for the invite, man. I've been seeing
Yeah,
you do this a lot. Seems really interesting. And I love talking to you, so like why not? I'm glad to be here. Come to that.
yeah, no, it's always a good time talking to you, man. We were discussing some things earlier. I was telling you how about a month ago I had run into you on a dog day for me, and you were just spitting wisdom that really uplifted me. And it's wild that a month's passed, and those things that I was worried about, they worked out in the end. Alhamdulillah, thankfully. And so
Mhm.
it's really that idea of time passes and things fall into place. And something that it reminded me of is a quote from Johnny Depp that he said recently. He said, "Not for a moment will I regret anything unless I've done something horrible to someone, which I haven't. I'm not going to regret being taken down a strange road for that period of time because I learned so much more about myself." And the reason I thought about that is because um, it's been a strange road for me, and I'm sure for anyone out there, like there's periods of time where it's been a strange road for them. And we might sometimes feel like embarrassed or um, wary about that path that we're on. But we have to realize, like, if we're doing our best, if we're doing what we can do, there's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Like, that's just our journey.
Of course, man. And I really like that quote you said and like the way you put it because that's exactly what this is, right? We kind of go through life trying to like it's kind of like a game, right? Like as if we're supposed to be doing something. You know what I mean? Like as if there are like set objectives and things like which I mean, of course, there's nothing wrong with having goals. I'm not saying that. But like we go through it thinking that like this is the way things should go. You know what I mean? Like as if it's like a very rigid and set path for us. And that's not just how life is. You know what I mean? Like life is this huge, expansive thing where you can take a million different routes, reach a million different conclusions, or there may even be like a million different paths that lead to the same thing. And we kind of go on this and we think that because things aren't going well, or maybe not how I expected, that we're doing it wrong. You know what I mean? But what you got to understand is that this is just, it's just life, man. Like the way you said it is perfectly. Like you do your best. You tie your camel, as the Prophet Muhammad said, or you, and then you trust in Allah. That's all you can really do, man. Like if you are in a situation where you're doing everything you can, you're controlling what you can, you're doing the best of what you can actually do, then the only thing you can do is just leave it up to Allah, the best of planners. Because I can plan hundreds of years, right? But no one plans better than Allah. And Allah is the seer of the seen and the unseen. He knows what I do not know, and He knows what is best for me. So, just kind of just submitting yourself to that plan or just whatever has been agreed for you is like 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 a surefire way to like happiness. You know what I mean? And it reminds me of like I'm a big like manga reader, and I don't know if anyone watches if they've read Vagabond. There was one person, his name is Takwon, and the way he describes it, like obviously like it's kind of has like it's like has some Buddhist aspects, but what they described really resonated with me because it was what Islam teaches, and it was talking about how it was like you know in a way, right? We're all free, and the way we're truly free is because like the way they described God was like the heavens, right? But like it was like the heavens have decreed everything for you, and in that you're truly free. And when I read that, I'm like, this is exactly what Islam is teaching. Like Allah has already decreed everything. Allah already has a set plan for you, and and in that you're truly free because you don't have to worry about anything. Like like if if the if the Almighty, the most knowledgeable, the most wise, and all His 99 names has like decreed something for you, and in His infinite wisdom and knowledge, that's what's best for you. you are naturally like you don't have to really stress or you don't have to really worry anymore. Even if something doesn't go your way. Like you don't do well on an exam. Yes, it's okay to be upset, it's okay to be bummed out. Like in the long run, you like have that thought in your head that like, this is what's best for me, this is what's going to lead me to success and victory in the future, even more so. And that always just brings like comfort to me and like happiness to me, like in any situation. And it's what gives me the strength to persevere and continue through something, even if I think it's impossible, even if I think like I can't do this or anything like that. So
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that Vagabond manga because I was looking through my notebook and I mentioned that because we were having that discussion, exactly what you said. And it's funny, the thing I had written right after that was something that really you kicked a chair and you're like everything in the world had to happen for me to be able to kick this chair. Could you explain that?
yeah. So I'm trying to remember the context of that, but in general, I was
Wait,
thinking how
I'm gonna pause you real quick. So your video is
okay,
really choppy. What I'll do is we'll
mhm,
just jump on the call again. It'll straighten out.
okay, cool.
Okay. Yeah. So we had some technical difficulties, but hey, like inshallah it'll work out, eh? Continue,
Yeah.
please.
So my line of thinking in that moment when I kicked that chair was how everything beforehand happened so that this exact moment happened. And everything beforehand was happened perfectly for this moment to happen perfectly because Allah decreed it. So in that moment I kicked that chair, I was like, everything I've done in my 19 years of life has led up to this moment to where I kicked this chair. And then I kicked the chair. And then uh and that happened for, through Allah's infinite wisdom. Allah decreed that this would happen because this is what's best to happen. So he allowed it to happen. And and the fact that anything else didn't happen, the fact that I didn't kick that chair, or I don't know, like I didn't sit on that chair or anything like that, is through Allah's wisdom as well. Because Allah decreed that if I didn't kick this chair, this wouldn't be what was best. So he allowed me to kick the chair, and that's what was best. And you know, I can kind of see that now because now we're talking about it a month later. Like, you know what I mean? So it was funny. Alhamdulillah.
It's such a cool and candid little moment because it just emphasizes like me picking up this bottle, like everything had to happen for me to be able to do that. It just places us in this
Mm-hmm.
unique position. And it's just kicking
Mm-hmm.
a chair. It's such a simple example, but it's just so true. It's powerful. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
And it feels really like, sorry,
no, go ahead.
it feels really kind of like personal in a way because it's more like, dang, like, like Allah already planned everything out for me for what's best for me. And like, everything happened so that I could pick up this water bottle. And he planned all that out like just for me. You know what I mean? Because he wants the best for me. It's like beautiful because it's just like, wow, like, there is like a being that is so caring and loving and wants the best for me so much that every single small step to the most like meticulous thing, picking up a water bottle, breathing, I don't like the function of my body working, all of this worked and planned out because he knows and wants what's best for me. And it's just it feels really, it's like you feel that love in a sense from that. And it makes you feel really just like, like looked after. I mean, who doesn't want to be looked after? Who doesn't want someone like protecting you or watching over your shoulder for you or doing all these other things. Off topic, but I love that Percy Jackson series behind you
Oh,
or the Olympic series.
yes, yes. That's so cool that you know about that. What do you like about Percy Jackson?
Bro, it was just like it was one of those kids one of those books I read when I was a kid that was just so like cool. What I mean? I remember I watched the movie when it came out and just seeing them like just go on this adventure, it was so fun. It was my favorite movie for like a good amount of time when I was younger. And then like as I grew older, I was like, there's books. So then I read the books, and then I was a really, really big book kid. So I read all the books like really quickly, and then I found out in like fourth and fifth grade there was like a continuation. I was like, "There's more people," and then I just read all of them, and it was just such a fun and enjoyable read. And it was just like Rick Riordan is just a really, really good author. And especially like he just kept me engaged the entire time for like 10 like decently long books. Like if I remember, like, each book was around 300 plus pages, and he wrote like bangers in all 300 of those pages, 300 plus of those pages in every single one of those books. And it's just like I was not bored for a moment. I remember.
Yes, dude, he's great. He's a great writer. It's
Mhm.
so interesting that you mentioned this because I love Greek mythology. I love mythology in general, and none of that would have been able to have happened if he didn't write those books. Because you know that thing about like, oh, if you don't read, it's just because you didn't find the right book. I was one of those kids. I didn't like
Mhm.
reading, but then like I found those books and I was like, whoa, this is insane. And I remember my aunt, she had taken me to go see the movie when it came out in theaters. And so I saw that film and that film literally changed my life. It literally, like, I realized that this is something that I'm really interested in. And so it inspired me to write my book, even, which is about Greek mythology. And so the fascinating
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
you know, as we were talking about how everything is kind of meant to happen, it's like he had to write that book. The filmmaker had to create that movie. My aunt had to take me to go see the movie. My mom had to buy the books for me. And it's like all those things come
Mhm.
together for me to be able to do just like that one little thing. It's like we don't even
Exactly.
know where our hand is being played in someone else's life. You know what I mean? It's just so cool. And how what we're doing, it works together with what someone else is doing that we don't even know for someone else. It's like it's so interesting.
Mhm. And like even like the little steps that we don't even know are happening, like like the butterfly effect, right? Where like a small little butterfly can cause like a tornado or whatever. It's kind of like it's kind of like that, but it's not random. These events aren't random. They're all planned and preordained from before like I think before the heavens and the earth even existed. You know what I mean? Like Allah already like knew this and decreed this, and it's so incredible. You know what I mean? Like for every single little piece or thing that happens, it's all in a bigger picture. And it reminds me because I'm a really big Marvel fan, so I watched the Daredevil shows and season three, best season by the way. We kind of see the struggle with Matt Murdock and his belief in God because his whole thing is like, how can I be like on God's path and do all these things, but like all these horrible things are happening. And if I remember, I think it ended like I don't know if it ended with this quote or it began with this quote, but it was where like God, like imagine a painting, right? And there's like we're behind the painting, and in front of the painting is like God, and he sees everything, like he sees the entire picture, he sees every single like minute detail. It's like a beautiful picture, right? And then when we're on the other side, we're only focused, we can only see like a couple blotches, maybe like some paint that like went through the page or like anything like that, and we only see that. And because we only see that, we think that this is the whole picture, and we think that this is ugly, this is horrible, blah blah blah, like all this other stuff, right? But we don't see the whole picture, and part of like our test and struggle in this world is to understand that like we don't see the whole picture, but the whole picture is beautiful because like God made the picture, Allah made the picture, and it's just like it can be difficult at times, especially when you're going through hardship, when you're going through struggle. But like remembering that, as I said earlier, like gives you that strength to continue through it and push through it until eventually, like, you see that that tiny blot was just a part of something way bigger, and that part of something way bigger is beautiful and perfect. But even that bigger thing is small in comparison to the whole painting, and then just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and continuously until you pass away, and then like you go on the day of judgment and you see that like alhamdulillah, like this all happened for me to inshallah enter Jannah and all those other things like that. And it's beautiful, man. Alhamdulillah.
It really is, and that's why I love optimism because viewing life through this lens that you just shared it can bring you nothing but optimism because then you have that belief that whatever's happening, even if it doesn't seem great, it's in my favor. It's for some goodness to unveil itself.
Mhm.
And I really like
Yeah.
that film, The Prince of Egypt. There's like a song in there called Through Heaven's Eyes, and it explores that, you know? And the example that Jericho gives is like it's a tapestry, you know, and you don't know like where you're being weaved or like for what purpose, but you're a part of that
Mhm.
tapestry and like something something's coming together. You don't know what it is yet, but it's coming together and that's really beautiful.
Exactly, man. And it's just having that like trust. And I'm not gonna say it can be an easy thing, you know what I mean? Especially for like people in today who may not be like the most religious or have be the most optimistic because of kind of like everything that's being pushed around you or like social media or anything like that. It's a difficult thing. And but being able to like hold on to that and like have that you're like it just makes living so much happier, so much easier. And I'm not going to say you're not going to feel emotion, anything like that. Like you're still human. Like something bad happens, it is okay to feel sad. It is okay to be upset. It is okay to have these emotions and have these feelings. And it can even be okay to like bring you despair. But like there's always some hope and there's always some light down at the end of the tunnel that is just going that you can always just look forward to. You know what I mean? That you can always just like no matter how bad it gets, I know that when this ends, I'm gonna be like the winner in this situation. You know, Allah says in the Quran, like, verily with hardship comes ease. You know what I mean? There's always going to be hardship, but know that with every hardship, you are going to have ease. And when you get to that ease, you will be so grateful for that hardship. And later on down in life, like you would have that experience of hardship so that you would able to not you able to persevere and go through more hardships. But at the same time, like as Johnny Depp said, you'll have learned so much about yourself and so much in general that you can apply later on when it's more important in life or just when it's like in another situation or when you can help someone else. You know what I mean? That's a really big thing as well. Like our experiences are a big part of helping other people. And that's part of our duty. Like, you know, as Muslims, we're supposed to spread good. And, you know, if you have the opportunity to spread good, Allah has given you a gift and He's blessed you to spread that good. You know what I mean? Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks for saying that. I really like that. And it's I had heard a guy say it's always about your next move. That's the beautiful thing about life. It's always about your next move. Like what do you do next?
Exactly.
And yeah, I think that that also connects to what we're talking about. You know, the experiences, they culminate and they set you on a trajectory. It's really cool. And I'm just thinking like about the past year, about all the people I've met. And it's like I never could have imagined meeting all these people or having all the experiences that I had. It's so beautifully mysterious. Even you, I didn't know this time last year, but now we like know each other. It's like how cool is that, you know? So it's like there's like a thrill to it, something to look forward to. Like, oh, what's gonna happen next? Who am I gonna meet? All that.
It is, man. You know, it's a fun ride. And even though that ride may have some dips, may have some highs and everything like that, it's something that like we can always look back and appreciate. Alhamdulillah. You know what I mean? And it's also like again, this is exactly like it's a ride. The destination is Jannah, inshallah. And that's another thing too. Whenever you have that end goal, like I can speak for myself, especially in finals, man. Like my last week of finals was super hard. I had back to back to back to back. I had chemistry, I had physics, and I had calc all within the span of like 3 days. And it was just like one and then 1 2. And I was texting my friend. I was like, bro, I just want this to be over. You know what I mean? And he was saying how it's literally 3 more days. And every single time that like I was just exhausted or like I was just like, I'm done, like I don't want to do this anymore. I just thought like I'm like, I can give 1 more day. I can give 2 more days. I can continue pushing for this short amount of time, which it only feels longer because mentally like I'm thinking this is taking forever. or all these other things. When in reality, how many days have I gone through? I've gone through so many behind me, and I like this one more day is just gonna be one more like block on that chain, and it's just gonna be, and it's small. It's not long. It's only long because I'm making it feel long because like I'm like my mental state or like my perspective on it is that this isn't long or anything like that when I control that. And that's another beautiful thing. Like, your brain is such a blessing because it can either be your best friend or your worst enemy, and the choice is yours. You know what I mean? Like, you can choose to have a positive outlook. You can choose to be like, like if something happens, like your reaction to it or all these other things. And it's just like it's crazy, man. I realized that like last year, and I was just like, dang, I could really like do this for myself. Like I could be like I don't have to think this is negative. I don't have to think this is bad or anything. Like I'm not saying be deluded, but like I can be optimistic. You know what I mean? When previously I would just like kind of let the environment determine how I feel when I can determine how I feel.
I
Yeah.
really like that you said that because that's a very important point. Be optimistic, but not naively optimistic, right? Kind of
Mhm.
see reality for what it is
Exactly.
type thing. Yeah. That's always an interesting
Exactly.
concept. The person always has to gauge themselves on that, I think. I was wondering,
Yeah.
do you care about being cool?
Like, do I care about what people say? Type thing. I mean, people can always say like I don't care what people think, but like to an extent, I think we all care a little bit about what people think. I think from what I am today, I care a lot less than when than before, alhamdulillah. And because I just realized that like 99.9% of people's opinions don't matter. They don't matter. And the only people's opinions that should matter are the people that I care about, or the people that I find who are important in my life. Like for example, your opinion, I care about your opinion because like
Oh,
I
wow.
really appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
really appreciate you and I really like care about what you have to say. And if you were to say something to me, like I would take it to heart. But if some random person in the middle of the street, like I don't know, said like your shoes suck or whatever, and I'd be like, okay, like I don't even know you, I don't care, XYZ. You know what I mean? But like how I kind of think about being cool is more not like, oh, he's so cool, but more like someone who people can kind of like look at and be like, this is a good person type thing. And like I want to be seen in that way because I want to be like a light to people. Like I want to be like a nur that people can kind of like come to or that people can like benefit from or anything like that. And you know, my main thing is that like I just want to leave like a small impact. I just want to leave an impact, no matter how small or how big, anything like that. I want to leave an impact on the people that I meet, and I want that to be a positive impact. And then so that I may have brought like even if it's just like a tiny bit of goodness to this world or to the people I'm around. And if I've done that, you know what I mean? Like if I've brought some form of good, I'm satisfied. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. And I want to say, like, you are that type of guy to me. Like, as I've mentioned, anytime I ran into you, it's like, wow, this is like, it's great seeing you. It's great talking to you. And it's like, this guy's going to say something that will uplift my day. So it's always awesome.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, Allah allowed me to be a means to bring you ease and happiness. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. I mentioned the whole cool thing because uh, I'm always very concerned, like, oh man, like, how do I look in the camera? Is my hair
Mhm.
cool? Am I wearing the right clothes? XYZ. And there was a article about the eternal cool of Brad Pitt. And something that was written in there was it was trying to connect vulnerability to coolness. And it was saying that being truly vulnerable is not giving a damn about being cool. And I really thought about that. And it's like, yeah, I was probably the coolest when I didn't care about being cool. And it was like similar to what you're saying, like you're concerned about the sort of the positive effect that you can have in another person's life. And that
Mhm.
kind of like is okay for you. That makes you cool in a way. So it's just something I was thinking about. Haven't found all the words for it, but
No,
It's
I
just
get
something
it.
that's been on my mind.
And it made me like that reminded me of something that was like, when we're like so trying to not make mistakes is when we make the most mistakes, which is really ironic. And like I remember hearing something and it really opened my mind because I was just like, so there was this guy, and he was saying your brain, it focuses on what you're thinking, right? So if you're on if you're skiing, right, and you're like, don't hit the trees, don't hit the trees, don't hit the trees, all your brain is focusing on is the trees. And then you're gonna miss the path or you're gonna make a mistake on the path and then you'll hit a tree, right? But whenever you're like focus on the path, focus on the path, focus on the path, your brain is going to be focused on the path. And then you'll inevitably like you're not going to be looking at the trees, you're not going to be like worried about that. And because you're focused on your goal, because you're focused the journey to that goal, you know, all these other extra obstacles that kind of come in your way, like your brain won't be so hard focused on them. So you won't like, you would avoid them. You know what I mean? Naturally, you're going to avoid them. So it's kind of similar that way. It's like, and even like back to Vagabond, right? The whole concept is to be invincible under the sun. And, Musashi goes on this journey believing invincibility is being strong, right? But it's kind of ironic because in the end, like the less he cared about strength, the more invincible he became. And the people who were displayed to be invincible were these old men who just like who just let like the heavens or like God like move them on whatever path that they went on. And they accepted that immediately. You know what I mean? And in that, because they didn't define themselves as like invincible or as this, right, or as cool, they became infinite. Because whenever you like think about it, right? If I were to try to describe you in one word, would I be able to do that? Like your entire character in one word.
We
I
can't,
wouldn't be
can
able.
we? Yeah.
No, we can't because we're so as people, we're so vast. You know what I mean? And like we're infinite in the sense that we can be like anything. You know what I mean? Like and but the moment we kind of like define ourselves as like I want to be strong or I want to be like invincible. We put ourselves in a box, right? And that box is very limiting and constricting because what even is it to be strong? What even is it to be invincible? It's just a word at the end of the day, right? The only meaning we give it is what we give it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and so it's like that's kind of like when you try to be cool, you're literally limiting yourself. You're limiting yourself, and at the same time, you're limiting your mind, and your mind is so focused on only your obstacles, and it's just like it's just all these negatives just keep kind of like coming together, and then you become like the guy that tries too hard, or the guy that like does this or does that, and you become further away from your goal. You know what I mean? It just reminded me of that.
Yeah. And thanks for sharing that. That is definitely something to ponder. And I think there's a great truth to it.
Mhm.
Yeah. What do you think a person should focus on their path? I mean, of course, the answer is vast because we're all so
Mhm.
different. But if you had to like say one thing, what do you think people should focus on in their journeys?
I honestly think that in any journey, having a connection with Allah is the most important thing that you can do. Because if you have that connection, if that connection is strong, like everything will just work out for you. Or you'll be able to go through anything and it won't matter. Right. You know, even if it's something small, you know what I mean? Even if you're on like a path, like not the straight path, anything like that, having that connection with Allah is so important. Because if you're like say you're straying from the straight path, but like it reminded me of a story, right? There was at the time of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, there's some companions that came to him and said, there's this man who he steals all day, but then he prays at night. And the Prophet told them to like leave him be, right? And eventually that man, like a year later, he repented and he became like a great companion. And then Prophet Muhammad went to these companions and said, look what I said. Like, didn't I tell you he would become like to leave him be and he'd be fine? And that's because like he never separated or severed that connection with Allah. And that connection is what brought him back to Allah, to the straight path. And that same logic can be applied in everything in life. if you have that connection with Allah, like you will be able to you'll see barakah and blessings come to you, and at the same time you'll be able to go through whatever. Like, there's a reason why we see we see these. I saw something on Twitter. It was really beautiful. It was like a man who was poor. Like he was like he was poor. I think he was like in an African country. He had ripped clothes, everything like that, but he was praying. And the caption said like, "This man is richer than all of us." And like it makes you think, because it's like, how do these people who don't have this luxury that alhamdulillah we're blessed with, how are they still so happy? How are they still able to put a smile on their face? And it's like, and you can kind of see that it's because they have a connection to like the divine. You see like these people who may not even know if they can have a meal, but they're still happy because they're able to connect. They have that connection with Allah, and it's the same thing like back then with the companions. Like they weren't rich, they weren't wealthy. You know what I mean? Like some days they went hungry, but they were able to go through the whole all those trials with a smile on their face. SubhanAllah.
Yeah. What you said was making me think about how something I contemplate is it cool to be religious?
I don't think like you can really put a word like, okay, that depends on the people that you're around, first of all. Like if I see you as religious, I'm gonna think you're cool. But like I don't think like, oh, this guy's like, oh my God, he's so like, you know what I mean? Like it's more just like, you know, I don't know. Like of course I appreciate people who are religious, and I think other people at the same time, even if they're not religious, will appreciate that as well. Because if you're disciplined enough to stay on like whatever worldview you follow, that's going to demand respect no matter who you are. There's a reason why people respect Khabib and all his fighters, because they're extremely disciplined, and there's a reason why like a lot of people, even though there's a lot of hate towards Islam, there's a lot of respect towards Islam as well, because people are like, wow, these people, they don't drink, they don't party, they don't do this, they don't do this, they don't do that. They pray 5 times a day. People respect that. You know what I mean? But I think it goes beyond the scope of like coolness or anything like that. And I just think for yourself and for your mind, body, and soul, it's cool for your mind, body, and soul, right? And your mind, body, and soul are going to really, really appreciate that and really, really like love that. And whenever you have that like that coolness in your mind, body, and soul, like everything just feels like like things just don't bother you as much anymore, and like you're just so much more stronger as well.
Yeah. No, very good point you mentioned. And the one thing that I realize more and more is that everything in the world betrays you. Honestly, everything in the world betrays you at the end of the day, no matter what avenue you go down. The only thing that doesn't betray you is faith. But then I wonder, like,
Mhm.
what makes it a difficult thing to hold on to? Do you even think for yourself that it's a difficult thing to hold on to?
I mean, in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that there will come a time when holding on to your deen will be like holding on to like burning coals or burning embers or something along those lines. And because it's just like, what's that? Oh, we're like we're very social people, right? Like and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, we're like a man will follow the religion of his best friend, and the fact that like we are influenced by our surroundings a lot by people, and in this day and age when you see like, oh, like people are drinking, people are partying, people are like hooking up with all these other girls and things like that, and like it seems like they're happy, right? Because they're satisfying every single desire that they have. Naturally we're going to be like, oh, like I want to be part of the group, like I want to like herd mentality, right? I want to be like everyone, I want to follow what everyone's doing, and like that brings you some form of like dopamine and comfort and things like that. But sorry, and like that makes it difficult, especially in this day and age. And kind of like that, like religious environments are like very hard to come by. And I didn't really grow up, like I didn't have religious friends around me at all. Like I was surrounded by like white people, and like other people, and I just like I didn't have Muslim friends, like or like good Muslim friends growing up until I came into high school. Until I came into college and I met the MSA and everything like that, and it was and like that really made me even more so appreciate. I was like, wow, like so this is what it's like to have Muslim friends, friends that like will remind you to pray, friends that will say like, no, you shouldn't do this, and all these things like I've never experienced before, and it just felt really like I felt like I was in a brotherhood for the first time in my life. You know what I mean? And having that good environment is what really allowed me to, alhamdulillah, get closer to Allah, closer on my deen, and at the same time, just just become a better person in general. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, it can be really hard at times, 100%. Like, I'm not going to deny that. And like, if someone's having a tough time, like, 100%, I completely understand. I'm not going to judge you, like, at all. And it's just that, like, sometimes you have to, like, kind of go through that test on your own alone. And it can be a really difficult thing. But like the fact that you stayed patient on that test, even though it was extremely hard and all this fitna is happening around you, you still stayed on your deen, or you did your best. Allah's gonna reward you with like a Muslim friend or like a good friend or like good people to surround yourself with, inshallah. And that's alhamdulillah, that's what happened to me.
Yeah. Being a pioneer out here in Cyprus, my bestest of friends were anything but Muslims, you know? And similar to you, it's like when I
Mm,
came out to the university, I was like, oh, like there's a crowd of people that look like me and like have the same beliefs and whatnot. It's like, oh, this is interesting, you know? But one
mm,
experience that I had was I realized that when I was with these people, I definitely felt um, more conscious of faith. But then, when I left that scene, it was like, oh, it's just me again. And then you kind of become susceptible to being as you were before. And so there's like a stark
mm,
realization for me, like, oh, like this is great that, these groups of people can like remind you of certain things, but also at the end of the day, you have to take into account like who you are on your own. And it's like those people might not always be there for you, but do you believe in
mm,
these things? And if you do, then it becomes your responsibility to kind of maintain that.
mm.
It's a very interesting
Of course.
realization for myself.
Mm. And like And that's why like having a good environment is so very important. You know what I mean? Like, because yeah, you're not gonna have because here's the thing, right? A good environment will follow you, like in your because it's gonna be in your heart, right? No matter what. If I'm surrounded by an environment of like good people all the time, and to say I leave those good people, and I go to like a bad area or whatever, that environment, even though it's not literally there, it's like it's there like metaphorically because it's like, I'm surrounded by all these good people. These good people obviously influence me, and no matter how far I come from them, how I leave from their influence is still there, and like, they're a part of me. And say like when I'm tempted with like something that's not right, I even though like if everyone's surrounded around me is doing that thing, that environment that I came from before can kind of like hold me back a little bit as well, or like it can protect me and all these things like that. And that's why like Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam emphasized so much having good friends, having good people that you can surround yourself with, that you can you know, like people that will like keep you on to the straight path, because it's like there's a verse in the Quran where it's talking about how it's like some people will be led to hellfire because of their friends, and some people will be led to Jannah because of their friends. And it's just like, and there's some people who will be in Jannah and their friends will be in hellfire, and like because they had a good friend, the person in hellfire will be freed and saved from Jahannam and enter Jannah, because the person will intercede on their behalf. They'll say like, "Oh Allah, like I will not be happy until this person that is in hellfire is like freed from hellfire and in Jannah." And Allah will free that person and He'll put them in Jannah, which shows Allah's mercy, but it also shows like how important having that good friend. Because what if that good friend that you have is the reason that you're saved? You don't know. Or like, what if like the friends that you have are the reason that you go to hellfire? And it's a very, very like scary thought on like the importance and the gravity of having good friends. And it's just, you know, whenever I like learned that, it really made me. way more conscious and aware of what like who I should be surrounding myself with and like what I should be doing to kind of like help myself in that matter. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely. It definitely cultivates character. That's one
mm.
thing for sure. Yeah. Yeah, dude. Your episode 68, man.
What's up?
It's I said you're episode 68. It's pretty
Oh,
wild
mm.
that we're
That's
here, you know?
alhamdulillah.
And that's another interesting thing connecting it with friendships is like you're here because we're friends. And going back to what we were speaking about in the beginning, everything culminates and comes together as a part of destiny. And it's like, wow, I didn't know you when I began this, but here you are. And here we are having this conversation. And here it is benefiting whoever it'll need to benefit. It's
Exactly.
just such a ineffable thing. Could never have all the words for it.
It's crazy, bro.
Yeah.
Crazy thing. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering, we have like 5 minutes on this. Did you want to keep going? Or do you think that this is it?
I'm good with whatever you want to do, man. Man, like
You know, frankly,
I'm
I'm good
flexible.
with whatever you want to do.
That puts us in an awkward situation, right?
Right? Yeah.
I mean, is there anything you want to say? Like anything you want to add on? Like I'm good with whatever you want, man. Because I feel like I've spoken a lot this episode. And, like you haven't talked as much, and I feel bad about that. But because I'm just like,
I
dang, I
love what
don't
you
want
were
to.
saying, man. I love what you were saying. Don't feel bad. It was great. You know, it definitely was great. I don't know that I have too much to say. I'm not sure I have too much on my mind. But just one thing that keeps coming to me is like Egypt, because you're an Egyptian. And it's like I guess like I don't know. I felt like it'd be cool if we have some discussion on Egypt.
Sure. What do you want to talk about?
I don't know. I'm just what do you think it means to be an Egyptian American? I know it's a big one, but just your thoughts, I guess.
I mean, like I kind of grew up as an American, and I had like Egyptian culture at my house. So, you know, it just to me it kind of meant like don't forget who you are. Like you're not like a white boy in America. Like you're an Egyptian American, and more important, you're a Muslim American. And it just kind of meant like, okay, like wherever you are, you're gonna represent what you are, and do you want to represent poorly of like your roots or of or even your parents or all these other people that helped you? Like you don't want to be like a bad representation to them because you're doing injustice to them in a way because they spent their whole lives instilling goodness in you, and now you're like spreading harm around people. And anytime someone thinks of an Egyptian or like a Muslim, they'll remember you, and then they'll be like, oh, they're all bad. You know what I mean? Like because we tend to generalize. So kind of just like don't forget who you are. You know what I mean? Like stay close and connected to your roots, even though I can't admit I've distanced myself a bit. Like as I like, because like throughout my teenagers, I basically just grew up as like American boy. You know what I mean? So I didn't really. So I'm working now to kind of like reconnect with them. Alhamdulillah, like learn more and understand more about my culture, add on to what I already know, and all these other things like that.
That's
So yeah,
cool. Yeah. And again, going back to what we were speaking about in the beginning, there was an example you had given me. Everything that happened to Joseph had to happen to Joseph so he could save all of Egypt.
exactly.
So yeah,
It's
that's
just like
cool. It's cool that you come from that heritage,
alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
eh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta say, man, I had fun talking. I
You too,
really
man. This
always
is
have
really
fun talking to you, man. Like you were very
alhamdulillah.
you have good energy, and I really like that and I appreciate that.
Appreciate
So
it.
thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
I was
No problem,
wondering,
man.
do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you felt like you wanted to say you didn't get a chance to, or something on your mind that you
Uh,
wanted to express?
I feel like I've kind of said everything I wanted to say. Alhamdulillah, like, like in response to what you're saying and alhamdulillah, I guess just closing thoughts, just, you know, uh, everything happens for a reason. Trust in Allah, stay on your deen, man, and just have some good friends, bro. Because like all of and just remember everything happens for a reason, and just doing your and just do your best. That's all we really can do. We can only really do our best. We can only just tie your camel, just and like don't stress as much, bro. Like, I guess because it's just just always have that thought in your mind that this is happening for a reason. That like what I'm doing is for a reason. You just put the effort in and just trust in that effort, trust in Allah, and that's what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah.
It's
Well, thanks, Oli, for being here, man.
no
Um,
problem. I appreciate it. Thanks for the invite.
yeah, it was awesome,
All
man.
right.
It was awesome. I
Yes,
suppose
sir.
until next time, inshallah, eh? You take care, my friend.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum
Assalamu alaikum.
salam.